I love when we have local people that do good.
Oh, yeah.
And I got a feeling this guy's going to do good.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, because he's hanging around with good people.
Oh, without a doubt.
And second of all, he went to Pepperdine. Mm-hmm. And you know what I've always said? Had I seen Pepperdine before I saw Vanderbilt,
you would have changed shakers.
Exactly. I wouldn't be in this seat right now.
Exactly.
Welcome in, Chuck Ellis, our good buddy. Chuck, of course, is well known around this area. And if you've been stopped by Chuck on the side of the road, you know he's a really cool guy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Even when you write
that.
tickets, you're a pretty cool guy.
Yeah.
Welcome
Something like
in.
that. Yeah.
How you doing?
Doing good. Everything's going good.
It's been
Enjoying
way
life.
too long since you've been on microphone with us.
Yeah, it's been a while. Been a long time. You forgot to mention he also Auburn graduate.
Oh, well,
2001 Auburn graduate.
there
so
you go.
He can give us a War Eagle occasionally and then talk about Pepperdine.
You're tipping off our secret today.
Yeah.
We have a filmmaker with us.
Right.
And Chuck, you're going to introduce this young man. Very nice dossier. He really has a good resume coming in here. And to bring his talents back here into the Tennessee Valley where he's from makes it even better. Give us a little background story on this.
Yeah, and today is his birthday.
Really?
28th of July is his birthday, so he's 29 again.
How apropos.
Yeah.
Actually, he's 36. But
He is
maybe he'll win the cake today.
Hey, you know how I'm thinking?
Mm-hmm.
He's a Leo. So
there
on
you
the
go.
movie credits, MGM.
Yeah. That's it.
You got it. The
But
Leo.
anyway, back about 6-7 months ago, I met Russell. There was a lady up in DeKalb County named Sandra Ellis Lafferty, who was a distant relation, but we got to communicating on Facebook, and he knew that I was from, I told him that I was from Marshall County, and he started asking me questions, and I got to learn a little bit about him, and I was introduced to a very intelligent young man of 36 years today, and Russell, as I said, he graduated from Fife High School, played point guard on the basketball team up there, and he did a lot of stuff there, and then he went to Auburn, and then went on to teach at David Lipscomb, and then went on out to Pepperdine. And he came to me and wanted to know if I could help him with some things. And he had this movie idea, and I'd read about him and got excited with it. And I said, yeah, sure. And so here we are talking about making a movie in Gunnersville.
How cool. Let's welcome in Russell Lingerfelt to the Funhouse Morning Show this morning.
Hey there.
How you doing, Russell?
Good.
Now, first of all, I have to ask you, are you kin to Larry Lingerfelt, the former mayor of Geraldine and so forth? And
Well, there's two Larry Lingerfelts.
actually, there are.
The Larry Lingerfelt in Geraldine was the high school principal for 30 years.
Right.
He's my second cousin.
Okay.
And then the Larry Lingerfelt that was the mayor of Fife, that's my dad.
Okay, that's your
Oh,
dad.
cool.
How cool. Now we know.
Got
Well,
it all in the family.
Yeah, you got two good connections there right
Yeah.
now. I've known.
Politics.
Yeah, but family when you blend in, this is a great family. They've got a lot of good things. They've done a lot of good things atop Sand Mountain, and good to have the Lingerfelts with us. Larry over at Geraldine High School is one of my favorite principals. When I go over and see him, and with football season, it's always fun to talk to him. Well, welcome in. Okay, now that we've established who you are and what you're doing here. You have a career in filmmaking, and that is a very unique opportunity, I think, for anybody. I think at some point in time, anybody that's watched a movie thinks, I'd like to make a movie. And then you start thinking about what it takes to make a movie, and at some point in time, you say, I can't learn all of that.
Yeah.
And you end up becoming a brain surgeon. But anyway, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, after graduating from Auburn, I went out to Pepperdine. I had a scholarship. And so Pepperdine is this really beautiful private school. It's in Malibu, California. It's on the beach. We had a girl there. She was a classmate of mine. She was actually a princess from India. And then the manager of the California Angels, I almost said Charlie Angels. The manager of the California Angels, his daughter was in my class. Santana's daughter was in my class. And then here I was from Fife, Alabama. And we had, there was other people there. We had people from cornfields of Tennessee and the plains of Texas. You just never knew who you were sitting beside. But I had a 75% tuition scholarship. I wouldn't have been able to go there if I hadn't had that. But it was a wonderful experience. Opened my eyes to things and questions I'd never even considered asking before. And then after that, I ended up serving as a professor at Lipscomb University for a while. And I remembered how much fun I had back when I was 19. I'd been on Dawson's Creek in Wilmington, North Carolina as a background extra. and I ended up helping the camera crews with their cameras and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was at Auburn, Tim Burton was filming Big Fish in Montgomery, and so I went down there and worked on that movie as well. But when I was a professor, it really wasn't what I thought it would be. Teaching wasn't. I love teaching. I love the kids, but it was a bunch of different other things that came along with that kind of career that I didn't really foresee myself doing for the rest of my life. So I remembered how much fun I had on those sets, and I'd written a novel called The Mason Jar, and it became a bestseller, so I was published, and it was doing really well. And so I resigned from my professorship. At that point, I was in the PhD program at Fuller Seminary in Pasadena, had a 4.0, dropped out, took this internship in film producing, directing, and screenwriting in Nashville. And here I was, 32 years old, with a 4.0 and a PhD level, and I was scrubbing toilets and getting coffee for executives. But
so
I knew where I was going.
College degree was working out for you.
Right. But I knew where I was headed. I knew where I was going. And so I got on as a production assistant for movies and television shows. And a production assistant really is everyone on set is your boss. And so I got to shadow every single person on set and see how movies and television shows were made. And then, of course, with my education, it didn't take long for the executive producers to start figuring out that I wasn't, a 20-year-old intern. And so they started talking about providing more opportunities for me and things like that. And what I basically did is I wrote a screenplay for the Mason Jar novel. And in 2012, I was actually flown to Beverly Hills by Matthew Malik. Matthew had been a producer on a movie called Bella that did very well in the box office. And Matthew flew me out, him and his production company. They paid for everything, all expenses paid trip. And they wanted to make the screenplay that I'd written, they wanted to make it on an $8 million budget. Mm-hmm. But to kind of give you an idea, the movie Forrest Gump was made on $55 million. The Notebook was made on $30 million. Pride and Prejudice was made on $25 million. 500 Days of Summer was made on $7.5 million. October Baby, that was shot in Birmingham, that was made on $800,000. Napoleon Dynamite was made on $400,000. So they wanted to make mine on $8 million. Mm-hmm. And which is, it's a reasonable sum, for a movie. Mm-hmm. But what ended up happening was when I came back, I think at that point I was, in 2012, so I was living in Nashville.
Gotcha.
And I came back to Nashville, and I have this screenplay that's apparently worth $8 million, and it's just sitting there. And what happened was Tom Hanks had brought them a film called Hologram for a King, which hasn't came out yet, and he paid them to make the movie, so mine got pushed aside. And then when that wrapped, Martin Scorsese, who directed Wolf of Wall Street, he brought him a movie called Silence about Japanese missionaries. It hasn't came out yet. They paid them to do that movie. So mine kept just getting pushed aside.
I got you.
And I'd stayed friends with him, so I called him up and I said, hey, I've got this idea that instead of right now the movie takes place in Colorado, California, Tennessee, Montana, but I'm thinking about rewriting all of it so that it could take place in Alabama. And since I know how to produce, I'm thinking about just raising some money myself and just making it local.
Gotcha.
And that was just kind of my way of finding out if they're still serious about making the movie. But I did have that idea. And they said, go for it. And they said, let us know how it turns out for you. So that was just a very diplomatic way of kind of figuring out what was going to happen. So
I was wondering, Russell, how did, you just told us how all of this has unfolded. When was the very first inkling, the very first gleam in your eye that you wanted to be involved in movies?
I think it was on the set of Dawson's Creek.
Okay.
Yeah. Because what you realize is if any of you out there, a lot of people in the Northeast Alabama region, they really understand real estate. Real estate, once you start figuring out real estate, it's not rocket science. It's very common sense. You just have to have perseverance. And, it does require intelligence, but you do have to have perseverance and just hang in there with it in the long haul and get your name out there. Well, in real estate, what you really do is you are hiring independent contractors to do the work for you, but you kind of have to know what to do and how to do it in order to oversee them. And that's really what filmmaking is. You hire independent contractors to do their job, and then as an executive producer, you just kind of oversee to make sure they're doing their job.
Red Devil native and former athlete, and of course, the name Lingerfelt holds a lot of weight throughout North Alabama.
Yeah, it does.
So he comes from good genes, good stock, good breeding stock, and he's a movie man. Now, would you consider yourself a producer at this point? Are you, because you're doing it all basically? You've written it, you've written the screenplay, you're going to direct it, you're going to shoot it.
You've done some acting. Yeah, you've done a little of everything.
You're going to do a little bit of everything here.
Well, when you get first started off, you kind of do everything, especially if you started off as a production assistant, because you have friends within the film industry and they need help with this and they need help with that, and you come in and help. But directing is really not my forte. Acting certainly isn't. But putting a team together, writing the script really is. And we got this guy. He actually grew up in Atmore, Alabama, near the Porch Creek Indian Reservation. And he's been living
better than growing up near the prison.
He's been
Or in the
living
prison.
in California for the last 20 years, and he's been directing Hallmark movies for the last 15 years.
Oh,
And so
is that the woman-hating or the man-hating channel? No, that's Lifetime.
Yeah, that's Lifetime,
That's
yeah.
the man-hating channel. Okay.
So he wants to direct thrillers, but he's very good at what he does. He was recommended to me by a full-time screenwriter for the Hallmark Channel. They said he was the best. He wants to direct thrillers, but working for the Hallmark Channel, they've got a great reputation for the way they treat their people. And so he understands how to tell those kinds of stories with the screenplays that are given to him. So since our story is kind of an epic story with a romantic slant, he would actually be a great fit for us. And him being an Alabama boy, it'd be good to bring him home. So
Exactly. Well, the one thing too about the Hallmark Channel is you're dealing with a very family-friendly channel. I mean, you're not going to hear anything nasty or see anything dirty or anything that would be a shame that you would. There might be some storylines that the kids don't understand, but you're going to get the wholesomeness of the film. Chuck?
As I always tell Russell, and my mom and dad enjoy watching the Hallmark Channel, and it's going to excite me whenever I'm able to walk in one day and see his movie playing and my mom and dad watching it.
There you go.
Because it's one of those movies that they can watch. I'll be excited for Marley to watch because she's got a little bit to play with how it's taken place so far. So I'm excited about that.
Very good.
That aspect.
Yeah, Russell, without giving anything away, without spoiling it, what's the story about? Who's your lead character, and how does he travel through the story?
We're going to make it family friendly, but really what that means is there's nothing you wouldn't want your 12-year-old daughter to watch. But we're not going to make a cheesy film. Like, it's going to be a very deep intellectual film, very similar to Pride and Prejudice, A River Runs Through It, Legends of the Fall, The Notebook. It's going to be very it'll make you think a little bit. It's not just going to be heavy laden with a bunch of sappiness that a lot of love stories tend to have in their films. We're going to stay away from that. But what we're going to do is, since I rewrote it for it to all take place in Alabama, we're not going to call it The Mason Jar. We're going to call it My Home's in Alabama. And we've already got...
I'm sure Randy Owen likes that.
Yeah.
We've already got My Home's in Alabama 1, 2, and 3 written. My Home's in Alabama 2 is actually going to be based off my second novel called Alabama Irish, which just came out a few weeks ago. It's doing really well. But all three films are going to follow the exact same characters. And we're going to create Alabama's very first movie production company. We're going to start it in Gunnersville. And we're going to make those 3 movies over the course of 5 years. And as they turn a profit, what we're going to do is we're going to open up for calls to receive screenplays that follow that exact same brand. So we're going to keep making the exact same kind of movies to keep up with the brand, but that's kind of the long-term goal. So we're hoping that every 2 years, after we get this trilogy done, every 2 years we're going to release a new movie.
So that means Ted 3 isn't on the
It's not on the agenda.
Unfortunately, no.
What's the basic plot? Your basic
Okay,
storyline
so
here?
a guy from Gunnersville, a farm boy, he meets a Colorado debutante on the campus of Jacksonville State University. They fall in love, and then at the peak of their love affair, she disappears. Wow. And she leaves him a Dear John letter saying that if you ever loved me or respected me, you would never try to find out what happened to me, and you won't try to come find me.
Oh, man.
So to deal with that, he goes and works on the Porch Creek Indian Reservation, and years pass, and he can't really deal with what happened. So he decides to drive to Colorado Springs, which is a 17-hour drive. And when he shows up, her parents don't know who he is, but he finds out that she's married. And so he returns to the Porch Creek Indian Reservation, and he writes a memoir about all that happened. And he and his grandfather communicate through letters, and his grandfather teaches him how to deal with a life that didn't turn out like he thought it would. And how do we get through grief, and how do we have hope after so much loss and unexpected things that happen in our lives? So based on his grandfather's letters, he writes this memoir, an inspirational memoir that becomes a national bestseller. And so Jacksonville State University, every year they have a homecoming. And I don't even know if they actually do this, but in the story they do. And they've invited him to come and be the keynote speaker 7 years later at their homecoming. Well, the character Eden from Colorado Springs, she's working as a nurse at a hospital in Colorado Springs, and her husband has passed away. And she receives the email from Jacksonville State about homecoming, and she sees that Finn is the keynote speaker, and that his memoir is a national bestseller, and she didn't know he'd written a memoir, and the memoir is called The Mason Jar. And so she runs to the bookstore, and she buys it, and she reads it, And then she shows up at Jacksonville State and she says that she never left him that letter.
Oh, wow. That's heavy.
Sounds like the current run of The Bachelorette on ABC.
Almost, isn't it?
So
I like that.
Except for the rose.
So, well, when she shows up and explains that, that's about 75% into the film. So the last 25% is them putting the pieces of the puzzle together to find out what happened.
Okay, no spoiler.
How cool. Yeah, no spoilers,
No
no.
spoilers here. That's excellent. I like that.
Don't tell them about the shark attack that takes the both of them at the end.
Come
Well,
on.
what I will say though is that since we're gonna, our first idea was just to do the trilogy, but now we know we're going to open it up and try to make one every 2 years. So we are going to be looking for financial investors.
You've got a great, and being a professor at David Lipscomb College, because we actually did a couple of high school games for David Lipscomb for the Bison High School, which is right there on campus off Granny White Pike in Nashville.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, that's pretty cool. All right, now you've got this fantastic layout. You've got this game plan. You've got it structured. Now let's talk about how you finance a movie, because in Hollywood it's done the same way, and it's amazing when you get to see the backside of, and having lived out there 4.5 years, you see the backstory. And the fact is, people come to your business, and even at Hits Magazine, we had movie people come to us and say, if you invest so much, we'll give you so many points. And basically, you loan them the money, and if the movie hits, you make big money. It's like, it's throwing the dice, spinning the roulette wheel.
Sure.
But it's amazing because there will be people like big investment companies, and I don't want to name any by name, but I mean, they will actually put investments into movies, and whoever has the hot hand has an easier time getting it. Is that not true? So tell us what your game plan is on investors.
Well, we're not going to do the traditional Hollywood route on this. What we're going to do is, me being from North Alabama, the production company is going to be built in North Alabama. We're going to go through people that already know us and trust us, people that we already have some kind of relationship with, and then through them they can rally the troops. But it's going to be we've already had 2 or 3 people that could probably fund the entire operation. They've already reached out to us. They're living in Huntsville. One guy grew up in Northeast Alabama, but he's a CEO of a large company in Houston, Texas, and I don't really want to say what the name of the company is because But things are going to go well. But I just know that you can have too many investors and you can have too few. You never want just one person footing the bill.
Russell, you were telling me off mic earlier about how you get to a certain point in time in money as far as investments, and then it takes a different role. You start to have to give other things to these people to help out. Right.
Well, there's these union laws. So if you go over 1.1, if you go over 500,000, that's the first mark, and then if you go over 1.1 million, that's the second mark, and the third mark is 5 million. And then there's one more mark, but I haven't analyzed that because I know we're not going to make movies that big. We're going to keep them low. So the idea is to keep family-friendly movies where you tell a really, really good story. Don't worry about explosions and computer-generated images and special effects. Just tell a really good story like you would Field of Dreams and A River Runs Through It and Legends of the Fall. Just tell something simple. Put it in today's time so that you're not having to make the town look like 1955. And you can actually make a really decent film. A lot of the biggest hits in Hollywood were all made under less than $800,000.
So, for example, you were telling me you reach out, for example, to Denzel Washington, and he says, well, I will need this and this and this in order to do that.
Well, a lot of times his agent is the one that's doing the going up to bat for him. But what you do is you have a qualified casting director who has the relationships with all the talent agencies in New York, L.A., Atlanta, Chicago. And these casting agents, they know the lingo, they know how to approach it, they have track records. So we make a list of the actors that we would love to have, and then we start off there. So yeah, we know for a fact that last week Denzel Washington read the screenplay. Tom Skerritt, that played as the commander on Top Gun, he played as the father in A River Runs Through It. He's read it. Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad, he had a lead role in Breaking Bad. I actually graduated with his wife at Pepperdine.
Cool.
A few years before she met Aaron Paul. And he's right in the middle of doing a movie right now, so he passed on it. But that's okay. That's how it is. If you're too busy, you can't do it. But what we're doing is we're letting them know that, we might not be able to pay you $3 million to do the movie, but we could really use you for less than a week. and we can pay you what we can afford, but we will provide all of the social currency. So in the business world, they teach you there's financial currency and there's social currency. Financial currency is just the money, but social currency is everything else, like the experiences, the relationships. So when you're on Lake Gunnersville, we can provide a private lake house. One of our investors or one of the people in the community can donate a jet ride. So they can actually fly to LA and pick up Denzel Washington in a private jet and bring him back. So there's these little social perks that we can provide the Hollywood movie stars, and basically say, look, why don't you come to Alabama for less than a week, act in a really nice written film for the family, and stay on the lake for a week, and we can have a chauffeur to show you national parks and state parks and really take you a tour anywhere you want to go.
We're talking to Russell Lingerfelt, of course, filmmaker making his home now in Gunnersville, Alabama. Don't forget to take him to Winsel's. But it is amazing when you take a budget of a movie that's, say, $250 million. What it's all about is they're going to film in multiple locations around the world. They're going to take nearly 1,000 people with them to make it happen. And so much of the cost of the movie is actually where you make the movie. And then the other part of the cost is how much you're paying, the star power names, because the star power names draw. Now, on your female lead here, I just had a thought. Julia Roberts is close by. She's over in Marietta. So, why not give Julia a call? She's raising a family right now.
Yeah, I think it's either her.
Too
I think
long
it's
in
her,
the tooth?
Well, her niece is Emma Roberts, which is doing really well in the independent industry right now. But there's a lot going on in Atlanta. Even Hollywood is saying it's the new Hollywood, and I'll tell you why. Not only are the tax incentives really good in Georgia, and we really need to talk about that. This is what it really boils down to, and this is why filmmaking, I think, can really take off in Alabama, is because Alabama has created these tax incentives saying, if you come and make your movie in Alabama, we will give you 25% of your money back. Not 25% of your taxes, 25% of your money. And if you hire locals, it's 35%. Now,
Cool.
Georgia is only 30%.
Gotcha.
So, but the thing is, you have the Atlanta airport, and you can get direct flights to anywhere in the world. There's direct flights to Rome. There's direct flights to London. There's direct flights to Beijing, anywhere.
Havana?
LAX does not offer that. You have to have 2 or 3 layovers to get to LA, but you don't in Atlanta. You can get there directly.
That's pretty
And
awesome.
so with their tax incentives in place, that's why Georgia's really exploding, and New Orleans is exploding too.
2 states in the South have made a bundle doing this, Louisiana and South Carolina. How many movies do you see that were filmed in Louisiana or in South Carolina?
Let me tell you this, $6 billion was spent in Georgia last year.
Wow, that's a big number.
Yeah.
In
Big
filmmaking.
number. Big number.
And for those of you that are that are political leaders listening, that's a lot of tax money.
Indeed it is.
Yep.
Plus you're bringing work into the state.
Yeah.
Because when you bring these movies in, you've got to have extras, you've got to have people to do sets, you've got to have camera, you've got Best Buys, Best Boys and Key Grips and all that stuff.
Yeah, gaffers.
And a lot of those are local.
Every single one of our crew members are going to be from Alabama.
Cool.
Because they have been trained. They've been working in Atlanta. They've been working in Nashville. They've been working in Birmingham some. They've been working in New Orleans. So we can't get them. Now, our director will have to be from California, because there are a couple of directors from Alabama that are making movies in Alabama, but they're swamped with work. And they're either doing faith-based films or they're doing horror films. This is actually going to be the very first film made entirely in Alabama that's not faith-based or horror. It's going to be the very first drama.
My buddy Steve Hirsch has made a couple of porno films in Alabama, but I don't think he wants
There you
people to know. But anyway, we're about ready to wrap up the old funhouse this morning. And I tell you, this has been a very entertaining hour, very enlightening hour. I want to thank Chuck Ellis, Trooper Chuck from our state troopers, for bringing your special guest with us and introducing us.
What a great guy.
You
Super
just gave me a
intelligent.
call, or you gave me a text out of the blue the other day, and
Yeah.
you said, I've got somebody I want to bring over to the station you need to meet. And I was like,
He's an impressive guy.
Oh, cool.
Cool
Yeah,
man.
definitely.
He is super impressive.
hey, he's already close. I mean, Lee and I can identify with the California points of interest. And what is, he's been in Nashville. Well, we spent, God knows, I spent 20 years up there.
Yeah.
And you spent a bunch of years up there. Tell folks now, how can people get a hold of Russell? Maybe they've got an interest. Maybe they want to invest. Maybe they have a passion. Maybe they want a job. How do they get a hold of you?
Well, that's a great question to ask. We got this guy. He's in Huntsville. He wrote me an email this morning. He said he's been a venture capitalist for 30 years. And the way he was talking, he could probably fund the entire operation. But he said that his daughter is starting to act. And so he has more than just another venture capitalist incentive, but now he has another incentive, and that is his daughter is trying to break into the industry. And she's already been doing some TV movies already, so she's got, there's these unions. If you're an actor or an actress, you got to be a part of SAG,
and AFTRA,
and things like that. But and you have to act in a few SAG movies in order to get there, but that's a completely different story. But I have a website called jamesrussell.org, James like St. James, James, and then Russell, Russell. So jamesrussell.org. You can get on there and you can send me a message through my contact page, and it does come to my email address. And I do get a lot of emails, so I'm just going to go ahead and apologize if I don't reply to every single one of them. But it's there. You can also read about the Mason Jar novel that was the national bestseller and there's a synopsis of that novel, and you can see how the movie is going to kind of the flow of the movie. And then you've got Alabama Irish. There's a synopsis of that novel there as well. And then there's a website where I produced, directed, and wrote a short film. And the director of The Cosby Show wrote us an email and said, for you guys to have done that on a $0 budget, it looks exceptional. And you can watch that short movie. It's only 8 minutes long. You can watch that on my website as well.
Is there any Jello pudding in that movie?
Yeah, really?
Have
we got any Jello pudding here?
Is there any Jello pudding in that movie since Cosby's guy got a hold of you? I'm feeling he's trying to hawk Jello pudding these days.
Really?
One final question is probably should have occurred earlier on. Do you see this on the big screen, or do you think this will go right to TV?
Well, that's really the distributor's call. What they'll do is they will look at your cast. They'll see who directed, who produced, who the team is, and they'll kind of gauge based on the past how much they think the movie will make. Now, no one ever knows. Mm-hmm. I mean, Clerks was made on $27,000, and it made over $127 million in the box office.
Yeah.
They made that movie on $27,000 only.
Kevin Smith's amazing.
And what is about the witch? What's it called? Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
Made on $500,000. It made $143 million in the box office, and there was no name attachment. They were just a bunch of ragtag filmmakers doing it in the woods, right?
And based on the life story of my mother-in-law.
Oh boy.
Oh, so
I didn't say that. Nanny.
We don't know. We don't know if it will make it to the cinema. It's actually very. Let me explain why it's so expensive to get your movie into a cinema. It costs about $10,000 for every cinema your movie shows in.
Right.
Because you don't send them a Blu-ray, you don't send them a DVD, you send them a hard drive with the movie in it. Mm-hmm. And then you have to pay for your movie posters, and you have to pay for the space where they hang your movie poster in the cinema.
Wow.
You have to pay for that. It's like renting a space.
Exactly.
And then the cinema itself takes 50% immediately, and then the distributor after that takes 25%. So even after spending $10,000 to get your movie in one single movie theater,
right,
you're only going to be walking away with 25% of the profits.
Gotcha. Well, TV movies and now DVD movies that you can stream, or movies that go right to the stream, are becoming more and more the way to go. Not that it's not still cool to go to a movie theater. And gosh knows we have one of the best in the country at Privé out at Bridge Street.
Oh, yeah.
But it is where if you've got a surround sound, I have a media room, Chuck. I don't know if you've seen my media room, and you need to come over and watch a football Saturday with me. We can watch at least 20 games together.
I need to come for that Clemson-Auburn game or Alabama-USC.
We can watch both of those.
Yeah.
If you get it on the big screen and the other 5 screens, we can have other games going.
Really.
But nevertheless, there's a, depending on, like you say, the distributor and which way he goes, there's a lot of ways to get this movie in front of the public.
Then you have other approaches, which is really what I want to concentrate on. And if we can get cinematic distribution where the cinemas are willing to, or we can do like a co-financing deal where they come in half and half, and that really shows us that they believe in the film. If we can get a deal like that, fine. But really, if you think about it, once you have a website, and the website itself and the way we're going to run it, it's not going to cost that much. But you can load a digital file of the movie onto that. You can sell DVDs from that website. And people can pay a certain amount, and then kind of like a Netflix deal where they pay a certain amount and then they get access to watch the movie on the website.
That's cool.
And so there's no overhead because you can load it on
Exactly.
there, and you can charge, say, $6 for the video on demand file, and then you charge, say, $15 for the DVD. And if you build a grassroots following, and that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to build this. We're going to have this big marketing distribution plan where we build a following to where if we can't get it into the cinemas, no big deal, because we got so many followers, we can just release it to the public.
If there's a spot in the movie where you need a DJ, or
I was thinking the same thing. In the
let us know.
background, they could be listening to the Funhouse Morning Show, and I also have a movie credit as well. in the Vern Miller story, Gangland, the Vern Miller story. So if you need somebody to just stand there and wave at people as they ride by, you know,
The house I was living in Los Angeles in 1994 was used for a family-oriented movie that ended up on the Hallmark Channel, except for a guy got shot in my kitchen.
Oh, nice.
But other than that, everything was pretty cool. Well, this has been super. First of all, I want to thank you, Russell, for coming on and talking to us about this. This has been a very enlightening and hopefully entertaining hour.
Oh, yeah.
And we are going to follow this. I'm not just saying that. We're going to follow this step by step. And anytime you want to come on, just come on.
And I would like to thank Captain Chuck Ellis. He's been a great liaison
Captain Chuck.
for me between myself and the community of Marshall County. If it wasn't for him, there's no way I would have been able to get as far as I have already. So.
And this is a good man. I've known him a long time.
I'm wondering if Chuck would like to do.
And he stopped me several times. And I still like him.
I'm wondering if Chuck would like to do weather for us. Captain Chuck. That's a nice
That's
name.
pretty good. That goes back to my days in the 101st Airborne Division whenever I was a captain up there. You're welcome. My pleasure.
It's great having you on.